Greetings and welcome back to the Wild Swans at Coole. Today we are discussing Langston Hughes' poems The Negro Speaks of Rivers. The question that I have chosen is widely famous among many universities, which has been asked differently, but the theme or the of the question is always the same. So the question is, how does Hughes utilize imagery and historical references to construct a sense of collective black identity and continuity across time and geography in the poem The Negro Speaks of Rivers? So to understand the poem, we have to first understand the poet. Langston Hughes was one of the most important voices of the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was a cultural movement that began in the year 1920s in Harlem, New York. During this period, black writers, artists, musicians, and intellectuals celebrated African American culture and challenged racial stereotypes. So, this poem of Hughes was written when he was 18 and it stands as a foundational text of the Harlem Renaissance. Rather than a personal lyric, the poem functions as a racial epic in miniature. So, for centuries, black people are often portrayed as people without a significant history or civilization. Hughes wanted to challenge this false idea. He wanted black people to feel proud of their heritage and understand that their history did not begin with slavery in America. Their roots stretch back thousands of years to some of the world's oldest civilizations. Hughes wrote The Negro Speaks of Rivers when he was only 18. Despite his young age, he created a poem that connects black identity to ancient human history. The poem is not about one individual person, it is about the collective experience of black people across different countries, generations, and civilization. Through the strategic use of river imagery and historical allusions and mythic eye, Hughes argues that black soul is not a product of recent American history alone, but a deep primordial force that has shaped and survived human civilization from its inception. Now, the central idea of the poem. Central tension of the poem lies in the speaker's claim to have been present at the dawn of time. When the speaker says, I bathed in Euphrates when dawns were young, he is clearly not referring to his physical self. This is identified as the collective I. The main message of the poem is very simple, which is black people possess a rich, ancient and continuous history that flows throughout the time, just like the rivers flow across the earth since beginning. The speaker becomes the voice of an entire people. He speaks not only for himself, but for countless generations before him. The poem suggests that black identity is ancient, powerful, and deeply connected to the history of humanity itself. By claiming these experiences as his own, the speaker asserts that the heritage of the Euphrates, Congo, and the Nile belongs inherently to the black person standing on the banks of Mississippi. Now, why does Hughes use rivers? The river is the poem's primary metaphor for the soul and the flow of history. Hughes writes, My soul has grown deep like the rivers. This refrain serves several functions, which is depth as resilience, then connectivity, fluidity. Now, think about a river. A river never stops moving. It travels through different lands, it survives storms and obstacles, it carries memories of the places it has touched. For Hughes, rivers become symbol of the black soul and black history. Just as rivers continue to flow despite challenges, black people have also continued to survive despite slavery, discrimination, and oppression. The river thus becomes a symbol of endurance, continuity, and strength. One of the most important collective ideas in the poem is I. When the speaker talks about events that happened thousands of years ago, he is obviously not speaking as one ordinary person. Instead, the speaker represents the collective memory of black people. This technique allows Hughes to unite the past and the present. The speaker becomes the voice of generations. Through this collective voice, ancient history becomes a living part of a modern identity. Hughes selects 4 rivers to represent specific epochs of human and racial history, creating a timeline of continuity. Each rivers represent a different stage of history. To understand the poem fully, we must understand the importance of each river. Together they create a journey through time. First, he mentioned Euphrates. Euphrates is one of the oldest rivers associated with human civilization. Beginning here, by beginning here, Hughes places black identity at the very dawn of human history. He mentioned when dawns were young. The message is clear. Black history is not recent, it is as old as civilization itself. The poet challenges the idea that black people stand outside world history. Instead, they have been present since humanity's earliest beginnings. Then come the Congo, home and the ancestral roots. The Congo River represents Africa before colonization. It creates an image of peace, belonging, and connection to nature. The river symbolizes ancestral roots. Here, black identity is shown as something natural and deeply connected to the homeland. The Congo reminds readers that Africa is not merely a place of suffering in colonial narratives, it is also a place of culture, community, and human life. Thus, I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. Evokes a sense of domesticity and peace. It establishes a pre-colonial African home, rooting the collective identity in a land of autonomy and tranquility. Then comes the Nile, which is achievement and civilization. The Nile is closely connected with ancient Egypt. Egypt is famous for its pyramids, architecture, science, and culture. Through this reference, Hughes associates black identity with greatness and achievement. The poem suggests that black people are not simply witnesses to history, they are creators of history. They have contributed to some of humanity's greatest accomplishments. This is a powerful statement of racial pride by Hughes. The Mississippi poem shifts into the American context with the line, I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. Final river is Mississippi, which brings us to America. Unlike the earlier rivers, the Mississippi is linked to slavery and racial oppression. However, Hughes does not leave the river in darkness. The river undergoes a transformation. This change symbolizes hope, resilience, and the possibility of freedom. The Mississippi connects ancient African history with the modern African American experience. It shows that although circumstances change, the strength of the people remains constant. The mud represents the grime of the slavery, while the gold represents the spiritual and political alchemy of liberation. The poem concludes by reinforcing the idea of an unbroken line. The movement from dawns, which is beginning, to sunset, the transition of completion, suggests a full cycle of time. Hughes' use of the word muddy is particularly significant in a post-colonial reading. Hughes uses rich imagery throughout the poem. The river creates vivid pictures in the reader's mind. We can imagine ancient civilizations, peaceful African landscapes, majestic pyramids of Egypt, and the vast Mississippi River. These images help readers travel across continents and centuries. The imagery makes black history feel alive rather than distant. Instead of reading history from a textbook, we experience it through powerful visual images. One word is especially important in the poem, which is deep. Depth symbolizes wisdom. Depth symbolizes experience. Depth symbolizes survival. A deep river has existed for a long time. Similarly, the black soul has accumulated centuries of experience, suffering, knowledge, and strength. The depth of the river becomes the depth of collective memory. The historical references are not included simply to mention famous rivers. The poem moves from ancient Mesopotamia to Africa and then to America. Each reference serves as a purpose. Together they create a historical map. If you open the world map and point out each of the location mentioned in the poem, you will have a more broad understanding of the poem. So right now go and take out a world map and point out exactly the places that are mentioned in the poem and see that how they are connected. It's important to see that Hughes used this poem to combat the alienation of the black experience by linking American Mississippi to African Congo and the Mesopotamian Euphrates. Each reference serves a purpose. Together, they create a historical map. This movement shows that black identity cannot be confined to one nation or one period of history. It stretches across continents and across thousands of years. The speaker belongs everywhere because his history belongs everywhere. So thus, Negro Speaks of Rivers is a celebration of black history, identity, and endurance. The poem is a declaration of presence. I have always been here, I have seen it all, and I will continue to flow. Through the symbol of rivers, Hughes connects ancient civilizations, Africa and America into one continuous history. The poem teaches that black identity is not limited by geography or time. Like a river, it continues to flow across generations by generations. The ultimate message of the poem is that the black soul is ancient, resilient, and inseparably connected to the history of humanity itself. He proposes a transitional identity, one that is defined not by the laws of a single country, but by the deep flow of a shared, ancient, and indestructible history. If you have liked this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.